Saddle up your horses.
Pitter patter, let's get at her. It is a special episode of the Manely Broncos podcast, and it's an exciting one because this is going to be 100% Senior Bowl related. It's going to be special. In fact, and Joe, I'm sure you've answered a million questions, but what we'll end up doing too is we'll do kind of like a Q&A too with anybody that's in the chat. Anybody that's got, Senior Bowl questions for you, we'll drop it into the chat, and you can drop some knowledge, man. I mean, it's great to have you. And anybody, that has not necessarily been following you, you've been adopting, your fellow Let's Talk Broncos correspondent, if you will, or fellow host, if you will, meaning Zach Seegers, adopting his tactic of the training camp threads.
Yeah. Shout out to Zach Seegers.
So I appreciate the fact that, you use Zach as the inspiration, who of course is a Manely Broncos alum. So again, shout out to you for using it wisely, if you will. But again, Joey Richards, as you guys can tell, is in for being a guest over here at Manely Broncos. It's gonna be a lot of fun. First things first, and I gotta ask you this first question. Being down there, and this is true, this is groundbreaking for you. Has this changed your belief that you can actually go toe to toe and actually win against a kangaroo? Because you remember our conversation.
It's not going to change. We might as well not. We might as well skip this answer. I might go Marshawn Lynch on this one. It's not changing. It never will. The Kangaroos, like I said last time, stop bringing up the Hulk Hogan Kangaroos. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the average size kangaroo, and those can't pick me or Brandon up. The kangaroo could never do that. So yeah, no, kangaroo, it's not changing.
I forgot about that until just now. I was like, what the fuck are you talking about? And then I was like, oh, I remember. I remember that it was locked in it was a repressed memory.
No, but
go ahead.
But first things first for you, Joey. It's been great. For you being down there in Mobile. Obviously, first things first, what has this experience been like? Because it's a once in a lifetime opportunity.
Yeah, I think I'm going to try to make this. Excuse me. I'm going to try to make this annual for me. I obviously love the draft. That's why my name is on Twitter is @JRDrafts. I originally made my account because of the draft. That's why. It wasn't even supposed to be Broncos related. It's just kind of married them both. So this is kind of my passion, and I love this. This is something I just indulge myself with. In the actual practice, you're not going to see me talking to anybody. I'm going to be sitting there watching the practice very intently with a notebook, and that's what I'm going to be doing. You're not going to see me talking, chatting up. I'm trying to catch everything because this is actually what I love. So yeah, it's definitely been fun, and shout out to Jim Nagy and everybody with the Senior Bowl for putting this event together. I don't think there's anything in media that's like this for me, from what I've experienced so far, at least, as far as networking and everything like that entails. It's really fun.
What's been I was kind of afraid that Cameron's actually going to steal my question. What's been the highlight of being down there this year? Just pick anything. It could be food. It could be a player, which we'll get into, but just if you had to pick your favorite highlight.
I would say
saying pick your favorite child, but
just the random people you run into down here, even after practice, it's crazy. I went to a bar yesterday and I was walking down the streets of Mobile and John Lynch walked by me. I was telling you guys this before the show started. It's what the hell? Or I was in practice today and I was just sitting there. I was taking my notes very intently, and this huge crowd of people started surrounding me. I'm like, is that Brian Kelly? And he walks right by me. I'm like, what in the world is going on? I don't know. Just the different people you see and stuff like that. It's really crazy. I would say one of those two were really fun. And just some other conversations I've had with people. and just being able to like sit down and watch football. Who doesn't like that? That's why we're all doing what we do, right?
I feel like I feel like you forgot maybe your most favorite story of that. I mean, you were telling us like how you were just shooting the breeze with just someone down there, at the Cedar Bowl, and then lo and behold, he's like the defensive line coach, the assistant defensive line coach with the Browns. So that to me was like one of the craziest ones that that you're talking about. I mean, like especially just from the standpoint of like the networking, and here you are, you're just down there watching some college prospects, getting the chance to really get to know them really, really well. But, lo and behold, there's, some Broncos coaches, there's some Browns coaches down there. There's like every single team representative, if you will, is down there, right? I mean, I know NFL Network just showed today, was it Logan Kilgore, who's like the offensive quality control coach for the Broncos. So it's crazy, man. It is absolutely nuts. So since you were down there and you've had the full exposure of everything, let's dive into maybe the biggest and the biggest hot topic of them all. And you could say it's Bronco related because of a certain position, but let's talk about the quarterback position. I'm sure it's possible that with it somewhat being like training camp, the opinions have been different. The opinions maybe have been different in terms of maybe this particular quarterback has had the best day, or and this particular quarterback has had the best day. But what, in your opinion, has been the overall consensus of maybe who has had the best week, who has had maybe the worst? Yeah, quarterback, maybe who's maybe had the worst week, or better yet, maybe who is a quarterback that maybe has helped themselves the most.
It's hard for me to say if there's a quarterback that's helped themselves the most. It feels very like these events to me. It's hard for me. Robbie put this out. Robbie Davis. If you guys aren't following him, anybody that's listening to this, go follow Robbie Davis on Twitter. He's fantastic. But he put it out, and it was so true. He's like, it's hard to put much stock into the quarterbacks at this deal. A lot of people are like, I'm underwhelmed by the quarterbacks. I get that. I was as well. But at the same time, they're working with a completely new playbook and all new players in a 3-day span leading up to the actual game. What am I expecting these guys to look like? What it really feels like is, who am I judging as the biggest, fastest, tallest? Like who's going to wow me the most? And that's ultimately what it comes to. And we know that the quarterback position is so much more than that. I think I wanted to see more from Bo Nix and Michael Penix, but it's the nature of this event. It's hard to get a huge read on that without being there in the room and talking to them. That's why I like having a quarterback coach at this event and learning how they just learn and stuff like that would be a big deal if the Broncos had that, but they don't. Spencer Rattler, I thought was good. Joe Milton stands out if you're looking for, excuse me, guys, sorry, a big athlete. Joe Milton has the strongest arm in this class by far. Cannon for an arm, standing at 6'5", 235 pounds. Not the best year at Tennessee, but if you're looking for that type of guy that you might be able to develop, that is a guy. But I thought Michael Pratt, pound for pound, had the best Senior Bowl. Just the most consistent down to down, most willing to throw over the middle of the field, most willing to say, hey, I might just check this one down. Just most consistent. So Michael Pratt would probably be the winner here for me. Although it is hard to tell in an event like this.
So as long as we're talking about him, because I was going to ask you about him, and I know you can't really take much away from what's been going on so far down there over 3 days, but and I put this out there earlier, I just continue to hear his name being brought up in connection with us, and there was that interview where he said like he spoke to us a few times.
Yeah,
I don't really know much about him, to be honest. Like, I really have not watched him at all. The other thing I know is he played for Tulane. That's all I know. I know you've obviously not really, you can't take much away from it, but the main thing I keep seeing is that he's a Peyton guy. He's like a Sean Payton offense kind of guy.
Right. From
what you've seen of him, and maybe it's not even just in Mobile, but like, what do you think about that evaluation?
Yeah, I think that like when you talk to him, right, like in that same clip that was released, and it was by Andrew Mason, he said he looks up to Drew Brees. That was a guy that he really studied and looked up to coming up. as a guy, and it makes sense going to Tulane, right? So I think there are some things that make sense there. Sean Payton also has connections down to Tulane. There's plenty of pictures with Sean Payton wearing like Tulane gear and all this other stuff just because he has good connections with coaches. So if there's a staff that has a read on Michael Pratt, it would be the Broncos. Meeting with him a few times now, having connections to the coaches, and then also Michael Pratt seemingly wanting to be Drew Brees. It just makes a lot of sense. So I get why fans and everybody is clamoring about Michael Pratt right now. I totally understand it.
For anyone who somehow doesn't know, Tulane is in New Orleans. Is why that connection exists. But yeah.
Right.
And obviously, the Broncos just poached another Saints person, for their front office, who possibly, and you guys obviously would happen. What was it this week where Jeff Ireland was talking about, Michael Pratt? So it's pretty easy to possibly connect the dots of possibly maybe this guy who's coming in at least has some understanding and, knowing the fact that the Saints even are maybe even considering, Pratt possibly for, their team and, so on and so forth. When you kind of look at it, like has maybe some of it, and this is, to a certain extent, kind of what I was asking too with the quarterback position though, but I mean, like, has any of these quarterbacks maybe even changed your opinion at all? Like, I mean, maybe some of like the preconceived notions, maybe that you would have had like coming into the draft, like maybe like a Michael Pratt, right? Like maybe it was something like he was kind of flying under the radar, but maybe for Pratt, like, okay, I could actually see this working, or maybe he's a guy that you hate to be. You hate to certainly, throw it out there, but obviously us it being in the content creator, world, if you will, or the Broncos podcast, world, but like to use the phrase Michael Pratt, at least in this draft process, is going toe to toe with guys like Michael Penix and Bo Nix and the JJ McCarthy's of the world.
Yeah. I mean, I don't, so I my opinion on any of these quarterbacks did not change substantially at all. It would have like, the film so much means it means just so much to me from what they've on college tape, especially at this position entering this bowl. It would have taken a very substantial game from Penix or Nix to jump McCarthy for me. Like just because I'm sitting there evaluating these guys and I'm sitting there watching the film and it's like, okay, you had a good Senior Bowl. What does that ultimately mean? It's not as translatable. Once we start getting into these other positions, I think so many of these other positions are that way. Quarterback, though, hard for me to say. If you guys want it, I like my little quarterback rankings would be. I think it would just go McCarthy at 3 or at 4 after your top 3, and then I would go Penix, Nix, Pratt. Is the gap all that crazy from Pratt and these other guys? You didn't see it at the Senior Bowl. That's what I will say. You didn't see it at the Senior Bowl. I thought Nix had not a good Senior Bowl overall. Up until today, I thought today was his best practice, but it's just like you're going to get those ups and downs. Now, if this were like a 2-week event, we'd probably have a much better read on it, right? It's just that the 3 days makes it so hard for me to be like, ooh, you're not good. You're really good at the quarterback position. Like linemen, I can evaluate in this more.
So I know we kind of dove right into the quarterback position for obvious reasons, but my next question was actually going to be about pretty much every other position. Is there like a position that you've seen being down there, like a position that surprised you? And maybe that means like there's more guys at that position that are like potentially like worthy of doing some deeper dives into, or maybe some that could potentially be a considered for a starter. Or maybe it's like just a deeper class at that position than you might have originally thought.
Absolutely. I knew the offensive line class was good at the top. Like if you go I knew that. But now I'm sitting here watching some of these guys at the Senior Bowl. I'm like, damn, I need to go check some of these other guys out because they had great great 3 days here at the Senior Bowl. Especially this American roster, their offensive line was terrific. Their offensive line was so good. And then the national roster also had some offensive linemen. Like, I have my little roster pulled up here, and I starred the guys that I'm like, damn, I need to go check out. And just on the American roster, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I have 6 offensive linemen that I still have to go watch because they impressed me at the Senior Bowl. I'm talking about really, really good play. I think this is a great year to take advantage of the trenches. When you're sitting there watching the Broncos, it's like, yes, they did have their best offensive line in quite some time, I thought, this year. But is Garrett Bull still going to be a Bronco this year? And then not even considering his contract is up next year. Is Lloyd Cushenberry going to be re-signed? He's a free agent right now. And then Ben Powers, you're sitting there looking at it. He's really easy to get out of his contract if they need to after the season. There's no offensive linemen except Mike McGlinchey and Quinn Miners that are actually guys that you're looking at that are for sure here after next season. It is what it is. So I think the Broncos should most definitely take advantage of this offensive line class. It's just so deep and so good.
Is there a specific position that you feel like maybe even deeper on that offensive line, group, especially because obviously, one particular offensive lineman has been making the rounds, at least from what I've been, getting and seeing as far as him possibly even being a first-round draft pick and maybe and possibly could be a Denver Broncos pick, maybe at pick 12, depending on how Fashanu falls or how that shakes out. But Tyler Guyton, has really asserted himself possibly, in that
I kept seeing
in that mold, especially as far as possibly being a first round guy.
Yeah. If you're looking for a big freak athlete, Tyler Guyton is big freak athlete, right? He has a lot of technical issues that you need to fix. Like, something people forget, like, I can't stress this enough. Knee bend on offensive line is the most important deal. You need knee bend on your offensive line. If you go in, it's football school 101, lowest man wins. You need knee bend, especially when you're big ass Tyler Guyton out there. So that you need that. He was winning a lot of his reps just being, I'm bigger and I'm stronger and I'm faster than you. He gets to a spot and sometimes has to sit there and wait for the defensive lineman to come. And that's how fast he is getting back there.
And he's 6'7", 330.
Yeah, he's huge. He's huge. And I would say the issues with him, it's just like everything technical past that point. It's the hands. A lot of the times he's not punching, he's grabbing. He's catching really a lot of the time at the offensive line spot. Sometimes his hands are a little too wide, and it's like, dude, you're 6'7". Make sure you're using all that length. You should be the first one punching. It's like a boxer, right? You can think about it that way. If you have the length advantage, you're trying to keep your distance. That's the same way Tyler Guyton should be playing offensive line with his long arms and everything like that. And stuff like that kind of scares you, but at the same time, he's such a freaky athlete that I'd understand a team taking him in the first round and being like, I can develop this guy into being a really, really good tackle for me. Just more of a project, I'd say.
More that physical freak. Well, the physical freak who comes in and you feel like, has some little bit of work to get done. Anyways, there's a guy actually who's also on the American team roster that I specifically want to ask about, but he's not an offensive lineman. So Cam, did you have anything else on the O-line you wanted to go over?
No, because we talked about the trenches. It would be fitting to talk about that defensive line or the
defensive line for sure, because I think that's also another fairly large position need for this team. But the other thing that I think you can't ignore and might become even more of a position you want to look more into is wide receiver, because we continue to hear that someone will probably be traded. And there's a guy on that American team roster that I just continue to see and hear good things about.
Yeah.
Lad McConkey, man.
Yeah.
First of all, elite name. Just elite. What were your thoughts on him? Did you watch much of him?
Yeah. I watched his film
I just heard he's
Senior
just
Bowl, and then I watched him at the Senior Bowl too. And man, if you want a vicious route runner, you want Ladd McConkey. Like, I wanted to go and interview him while I was down here and be like, how tired of the Wes Welker, Julian Edelman?
That's what I see it all the time.
Yeah, that's all.
He's white.
Yeah. So what makes him, I think, a little different, guys, is that he's fast. Like, Ladd is very fast.
He's Wes Welker, but he's fast.
He's really fast, and he's sudden, man. He is a routing savant. Like the way he's able to change tempo as a route runner, which is like I can go slow, I can go fast, I can lull you to sleep. It's like he does all of that different type of stuff, and he's so sudden out of his breaks. Ladd is a really interesting one. I think in the NFL he's going to be more of a slot than he's going to be an outside guy because he does lack just weight, and sometimes when guys get in coverage on him,
it's a big slot though. He's 6 foot.
Yeah. He's not a bad size slot. Just when you move outside at his weight, guys can get into him in the press, and he has a hard time getting off of it. Slows everything down. Screws up the rep. So I think he's a slot because you're going to want those free releases as much as possible, and he's going to be a really good player. When I watch this film, his stats are so deceiving, right? Because I think he had like 100-something yards here, if I remember correctly. But when you watch the game, this guy's really good, and you can tell on every rep that he plays, it's really good. Georgia just had so many guys that they played. It was like 6 wide receivers in that same range of receiving yards. So Ladd McConkey is a very interesting name to keep an eye on. Can I throw you guys a wide receiver real quick? And I want your opinion.
Sure.
Go for it.
All right. So there's this guy, Johnny Wilson from Florida State, 6'6" at wide receiver, almost 6'7". He's 235 pounds. And the debate here in Mobile is this guy a tight end or is he a wide receiver? What the hell?
So,
I've come away with like, I think he could do a little of both. Like it's more, I think he's in between. He's like the best blocking wide receiver in the draft. He's fast. He can move really, really well. Why not play him at power slot? You guys see what Lil Jordan Humphrey was doing this year? Getting playing time as a blocker at the wide receiver position. Imagine if that guy was also in a really good receiving threat. I think that's what you're getting with Johnny Wilson here. Just kind of a power slot. That's someone I want to circle and highlight. Yeah, like I said, 6'7" at Florida State is what he's listed at. 237 pounds.
That's insane.
Insane wingspan. He's like it's like throwing into a parking garage, right? Like he can go and catch anything. So he's a guy I circle, and I'm like, damn, he could be a difference maker for the Broncos.
It's almost like well, you don't want to throw the comparison up because obviously what happened possibly later in the career, but it's almost like the Kelvin Benjamin syndrome. Like I mean, like the way that the way that he was. But I think that right. Coming from almost I think he actually came from Florida State, right? But I think, when you were mentioning that, I was actually going through, and I think it was, many years back, and it was actually Alan Lazard's rookie year. Yes. Before he came into the rookie year, Alan Lazard, if I'm not mistaken, coming into the Senior Bowl, he was like he was, and I don't know if Johnny Wilson is actually getting looks at tight end, but right, but like I know that Lazard, when he was at that Senior Bowl, he was getting looks at the tight end position, and we all know that he's at least made a living, if you will, at that wide receiver position. But there was at least a conversation. Had, if you will, that Lazard was possibly being looked at as a tight end.
Yes, and Cam, that's so interesting because I've been bringing up Lazard when I've been talking about Johnny Wilson to whoever will hear me because the Broncos tried to sign Lazard this offseason. Who remembers that? To play that Lil Jordan Humphrey role, power slot role for the Broncos. Lazard, let's see his measurables real quick. 6'5", 227 pounds. Really not that far off from a guy like Johnny Wilson, right? You can start to compare those two, and it makes sense. Although Johnny Wilson is even the bigger version.
I was gonna say it's funny you bring up Lil Jordan Humphrey and it's also funny that his name's Lil because like dude's huge. Because people they forget how big he is. Yeah, he's 6'4". But it's interesting too that you bring him up because he's actually a free agent after this season. We only brought him in on a 1-year deal, and he came over from that New Orleans pipeline. Like he was in New Orleans with, I believe he was there with Sean Payton. I'm trying to figure out exactly what year he was there because he's only been in the league for a few years.
It was Sean Payton's offense.
Like it was his last year.
Yeah.
It was 2019. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, he definitely seems to value a guy with that kind of skill set at that position in terms of like just being an absolute freak monster, huge physical wide receiver. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised at all. Like if we're not going to bring Lil Jordan Humphrey back, if Johnny Wilson, like, where do you think he goes?
I think he's a day 2 pick.
Day 2? Because
I think there's going to be plenty of teams that just watched his film and are like, maybe he's Mike Evans instead of maybe he's this. Like the opinions on him are so varied. I think he ultimately can play outside wide receiver. I'm just sitting here. I'm scouting for the Broncos, and I'm like, what would he play in the Broncos scheme? And I'm like, he would be such a good fit in this power slot thing. But easily I could see other teams being like, oh, he's my X wide receiver for sure. I could see him going round 2 or round 3 ultimately is where I think he goes because, I mean, you're talking about 237. If he keeps it under 4.6 in the 40, he's a freak. That's what we're looking at here. So if he runs anything below that, I would be shocked if he got out of day 2.
So then I got to ask the question. Obviously, it would be. He's a little bit smaller. Obviously, he's not the Allen Lazards, the 6'5" or even the 6'7". But I feel like there's possibly another wide receiver on that American team, that may be getting somewhat of those same maybe not to the same extreme, but Xavier Leggett. Xavier Leggett is one of those players that, like it. I mean, this is necessarily about like. What he did in this last year, because he blew the doors off like this last year. Like he was crazy this last year with South Carolina. But like what has his appearance to you been like this? Because it feels like maybe the opinions, maybe he had some down weeks, but he actually came out and actually shined. Maybe near the end of the Senior Bowl practices, and who knows what it'll translate to in the games. But a guy like a Xavier Leggett. Would you necessarily lump him in that maybe same conversation to a certain extent?
I think that he is more of your outside receiver, Cam, and ultimately, like not a bad call there though, because I get where you're coming from. Because he's freaky. He is freaky. He came in a lot shorter than people expected him to. He's 6 foot, and South Carolina was listing him at like 6'2", 6'3". Which makes it even crazier that he was winning as many like 50-50 balls as he was, because he is such a good I'm just going to take the ball out of the air type guy. And he's huge and he's physical and he's so good after the catch and he's fast. Leggett is a real life player. Like he's good. He's getting first round looks by some teams for sure. It felt like after he came in a little shorter, people just wanted to hate on him day 1. It wasn't that bad. And then day 2, he looked really good, Leggett. So I'm expecting big things from Leggett. Just to put it in perspective of what he meant to that South Carolina offense, he had 1,200 yards. The next receiver had 300. like that. That's how much he meant to that South Carolina offense. If Leggett wasn't open, it was still throw it to Leggett. Yeah. That was their offense last year. Like, I'll just go down this. It was 1,255 yards. The next guy was a tight end at 312, and the next guy after that was 265. Guys weren't catching the football. No one Leggett wasn't catching the football down. Yeah.
It's like it's going to him, and you still can't stop.
Absolutely.
Respect, Rattler. Crazy. Respect.
Well, as long as we're talking about wide receivers, because obviously, like, Brendan Rice has kind of been like one of the hot names. But the other guy I continue to kind of see things about, and I literally know nothing about this player, but I've seen a lot of people mention him as Jamari Thrash.
Yeah, he looked good, and that's a guy that I need to go back and watch the film on now because he's a guy I have start on my list too. In the Senior Bowl, he looked like such an easy mover. He looked so sudden in and out of his breaks while not being small. It's not like he was a tiny 5'10" wide receiver out there. How big is he? He was Jamari Thrash. Boom, boom, boom. Sorry, guys. 5'11", almost 6 foot. He was 6 foot is what he came in at. And yeah, he's such an easy mover out there, even in like the red zone period today, where everything gets condensed, right? It's a lot harder to get open in that area. He was still making people miss and still getting wide open out there. So Jamari Thrash is a guy I need to go back and watch the film on because he had a really good Senior Bowl.
You know, and if we're just going to continue down, up and down that wide receiver room, it seemed like the wide receiver room in general had quite a few, you know, positives from that room. And I'll just throw out, you know, a handful of them, if you will, that it seems like maybe have, you know, really done great things for themselves. And Roman Wilson is a name that is really you know, helped himself up, if you will, this week. Like it feels like he's almost unguardable, if you will. Like he made a really bad throw. Even it looked like even on like some of the one-on-ones where he reached out and he grabbed the pass, you know, like and actually caught it even on the one-on-one. Like, and it was a really bad pass, and he still caught it. But he was open, but he caught it as he was like falling down to the ground.
The thing about that is interesting is because he's a Michigan wide receiver.
Yeah.
As well as he's looked at the Senior Bowl, it just makes me look at JJ McCarthy and not know what the fuck happened. Like I don't know what to think about it.
But
I did the exact same thing. I thought because when I was sitting there watching him at Senior Bowl, I'm like, this guy looks like a first-round pick to me. Absolutely, all day.
He made this like
catches over the middle. He's getting open at will. He's fast. He's sudden. He has everything to him. Cam, I think the catch you're talking about
was it the one-hander
at the end of practice, and pretty much the whole team huddles around each other, forms a big circle, and it's just like best on best. Yeah. Roman Wilson kind of got Keon Mitchell stumbling a little bit. Came out there one-handed behind him. Brings toe attaches right before he gets out of bounds. Like Roman Wilson was a player so good that he didn't practice today because why the hell would he? He's already proven what he was. He was that good. So yeah, Roman Wilson was fantastic.
There was another wide receiver that, you know, it certainly seemed like, you know, he really helped himself out, and the name is not showing up that I can at least see on the Senior Bowl roster, but Malachi Corley. Was, and maybe I got his position mixed up, but Corley was one that he looks like a yak monster, like a yak monster. Like it almost gave me flashbacks to, you know, the Carlos Henderson days, you know, that draft crush that we grew up with, if you will, just a yak monster, you know, and I think of like this guy in terms of like the Sean Payton offense, I'm not saying that he'll end up being a Bronco, right? Because you don't know that answer, but like that type of player, a yak monster like that he's going to eat. Like he's going to eat at the next level if you can be able to use him in those types of ways, you know, or even, you know, like not necessarily those Deebo Samuel type roles, but just he was another guy. It feels like, you know, that was really, you know, doing quite well, and not just the red area, but just, you know, in any other situation that he was really just tasked with, it felt like this week.
Absolutely. I mean, we're talking about a guy that's built like a running back, like 5'11", 6 foot. He's like 205, 210 pounds, somewhere around there. If I had the numbers right in front of me, I'd just read it to you guys. But yeah, he was a guy that looked like a running back. Like you said, Carlos Henderson. I have a stat for you just to further that. 657 of his 958 receiving yards came after the catch. That's insane, right? So yak monster, you can't say it enough. And he looked good. He looked good, especially on those underneath routes. I think ultimately for an NFL team. He's going to be a slot wide receiver that you're going to be doing a lot of gimmicky stuff with, and then also just using him as a wide receiver on underneath throws. And if you can ultimately put him in a Deebo Samuel type role, that's his comp. That's the guy that you want to play him like. I don't know if he's as sudden or as good of a route runner as Deebo was coming out of South Carolina, but at the same time, hey, you draft this guy and you can try to create him into that. Like that's why coaches are here.
Right. And obviously we would be remiss if we didn't talk about a Bronco connection. There's another wide receiver that may be actually kind of helping his cause out just a little bit. And that would be someone from that McCaffrey family, Joey. Luke McCaffrey is down there in the Senior Bowl. I actually thought he was at the Shrine game, which is actually playing right now as we were recording this. But it seems like Luke McCaffrey has actually helped himself out a little bit. That former quarterback down there wearing the Netflix logo.
Yeah, Luke has been good. I had the chance to interview him as well, which is cool. I was at the Ed McCaffrey football camps where Luke was also growing up, like all the time. So I've known of Luke forever. And I told him that, but yeah, it was just, I asked him, I said, because for those that don't remember, he played quarterback at Fowler Christian and then went to Nebraska, your Cornhuskers, Cam, as a quarterback before transferring.
Scott Frost recruit. We got to throw that in there.
Yeah. Well, he transferred out of there, Cam. Should have used him as a wide receiver, buddy.
Exactly. Maybe that was actually a good thing Scott Frost did, was realizing, you know what, you're not a quarterback.
But I asked him, I said, did playing quarterback help you at all transition to wide receiver? And he was pretty much said absolutely, and gave a bunch of great reasons as to why. And you see it, he's super nuanced for a guy that's kind of new to the position. He was one of the top 10 guys in 50-50 ball situations in college football for the stats. And he was really good at route runner, a much better route runner than I anticipated at the Senior Bowl. He got a touchdown today from Michael Penix. He's made plays. Luke has made plays, and I kind of understand why he's here, because I hadn't been able to watch much Rice football, obviously, beforehand. So, yeah, he's made plays. He's shocked some people, I think.
So I got to go back and talk about the trenches, because we would be remiss if we didn't talk about your boy. And that would be your boy down there with the University of Missouri. He's made a name for himself down there. A guy by the name of Darius Robinson. He's he hasn't just he hasn't just made a name for himself in the let's possibly be a second round draft pick conversation. No, he's having himself like he's a bona fide first round draft pick all the way. Like if you could probably just say in these types of words, like a guy that is absolutely maybe the biggest winner or one of the biggest winners in like a very short list, it would be Darius Robinson from Missouri.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of rewarding. This is the type of stuff you love about the draft. Or man, if anybody could hear me, I was screaming out Darius Robinson's name before this kicked off, because I was such a big fan. I thought he was so good, and I was like, catch on. And then he came down to the Senior Bowl, and he's done that. He's getting looks from everybody. Like, you talk to him at these events, and it's like, yeah, barely any teams haven't talked to me. What do you mean? Why are you even asking me who has talked to me? Yeah, the better question would be who hasn't. He's amazing, man. He is like, where is he on my list here? I'll read you guys his measurables real quick, whether they came in at the Senior Bowl. He came in at 6'5", 286 pounds, and he can play the edge and interior defensive lineman. I think the question why some people were lower on him was like, can he actually play the edge, and can he actually play the interior defensive lineman? It's kind of what we've seen with Isaiah Simmons now, where it's like he's sold to us as this guy that can play all these different positions. Then we get him, And it turns out he really can't play any position. He hasn't learned how to play any of them yet. I think Darius Robinson's kind of the opposite, where we're actually talking about a versatile player here. He can pass rush from the inside. He has vines for arms. He's going to come in, and if you play him at the edge, he's going to be an elite run supporter straight from the beginning. And he has pass rush moves. I thought too much in the Senior Bowl. He was trying to run straight through offensive linemen's chest too often. Like, that's not something that you would ever teach defensive linemen. Like, bull rush is cool, but you want moves to you. And he has a patent push, pull, swim over the top move that he gets down. And if you just you see yourself, you're like, I can continue to refine that. It's going to be a monster. He's going to be too quick and too fast for interior defensive linemen, and he's going to be way too big for tackles to hold up in the run. So I think a guy that can play multiple positions for a defense right away and be a contributor day one.
See, I don't know. You're talking about him over there doing multiple positions, but my guy, Tavondre Sweat, over there at 362 pounds is running some wide receiver routes and catching balls in the end zone. So did you see that?
Yeah. It was that was funny to watch. That was really funny to watch.
But for real, actually, I'm just a big fan of Sweat and just kind of want to see what you thought of him. Because from what I've seen, Duke is just absolutely destroying people. He's kind of more of a nose tackle. He's like 6'4", 362. He's big. Yeah. But from what I could see, he literally just he's just too strong for anyone to guard him. Like, everyone that tried to block him, he basically just sat them down on their ass. It's
so funny, Brandon. He's the only guy that didn't weigh in for this event. And I'm like, why the hell didn't you weigh in, bro? Like, what's gonna
going off of the college
out here? You're gonna be 370? Oh no! Like, what's the big deal? I didn't understand that at all. But yeah, you're right. I mean, he's one of those guys that I think he has really good hands.
And he showed it. He caught the pass.
Yeah. Like, honestly, like, for a nose, I was kind of shocked. Like, when I was watching him at Texas, his tape, I was like, okay, I think Tavondre Sweat thinks he's a 3-tech instead of a 1-tech sometimes because he's doing all this, like, hand swipe, swim moves. I'm like, dude, you're 360 pounds. Can you just, like, sit down and go bull rush somebody for me real quick? And that's all he's done here at the Senior Bowl is push people. He had this one rep against Bo Limmer, the center from Arkansas. My guy Avalanche Lombardi, I've been watching his videos forever. He had a great take on it. It's like, as an offensive lineman, you're supposed to. You're taught to give up ground slowly.
I think I saw exactly
involved on this play. That's involved because he gave up ground slowly and got smashed right at the end. Like Tavondre Sweat has been a mammoth. Nobody
got really folded into the ground.
He's just an ass kicker. No one can block him.
Yeah.
Just point him at the in the general direction of the offense and tell him that the quarterback kicked his dog or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Just watch him kill people.
Absolutely.
For like a basketball comparison, it's almost like if you're giving someone a chair, like it, in terms of, possibly like going up, or driving to the basket, you're giving them a chair or whatever, like they're backing in, on you and they're blocking, you give them the chair, basically. Like his legs gave out on him, right? Like it was just a bully, doing what his job was, basically. Yeah, that was something.
And Tavondre Sweat, I would say the only issue with him is what I said at the beginning. Like, sometimes he wants to get too finesse. Like, the way I would comp this is like, have you guys ever played pickup basketball with the guy that's like 6'8" and he's out there playing on the perimeter the whole time? And it's like,
I've never had the
if
experience.
you don't get yourself in the paint right now and go get some rebounds, like on occasion.
Like, bro, you just have to stand there and reach up, and you'll get every rebound.
Bro, I'm not trying to see you do a crossover. Go get a rebound for me. Sometimes Sweat gets in that where it's like,
so funny.
He's doing all this handsy stuff at the front, like he thinks he's an edge player. It's like, dude, you're 360 pounds.
Just push him. He'll fall over.
Yeah, push. Go. You have the easiest job out here. Just go straight.
It's almost like if you were to have Wembanyama just be like a perimeter player, like just
He
be
is.
focused.
Sometimes it's when you get mad at him for that, Cam.
Yeah.
Was there anyone else on the defensive side specifically that kind of like shot up the list a little bit, or was maybe like, yeah, we should kind of pay attention to this guy a little bit more?
I think the best pound for pound player at the Senior Bowl has been Keon Mitchell from Toledo.
The corner.
And he's a cornerback.
Yeah.
About him being a first, but what happened here is like he's gonna skyrocket. He's gonna be a guy that's gonna run for threes. And I was talking to Frankie about this. I don't know if there's ever been a more dominant 3 days from a corner in a Senior Bowl setting with this incredible wide receiver class. He was just clamping people up everywhere he went. He was amazing. I have
he went
no
against Luke, I think.
Yeah. He was good against everybody. It didn't matter what happened. The only rep I really saw him lost was that Roman Wilson one where he caught it with the one hand. Like that's like he's been phenomenal this entire week.
So if you were to say, maybe, I know we touched on possibly like even a name, maybe some names, but like, is there a name that maybe you had no idea about, but then all of a sudden, he's possibly like entering a draft crush territory for you?
Like a sleeper?
A sleeper. I need to go and watch the film on some of these guys before I say that. I'll say Braden Fisk from Florida State. He has a jump off the ball. He's kind of like a 3-tech guy. He has a jump off the snap that's elite. And it was that the entire 3 days. It's elite jump from the interior. And he has that the kind of build off of, right? Some of these other guys, it's like you have to teach them all this other stuff. He has elite jump immediately. And now I'm just trying to teach him how to win after that, which is amazing ground to start working from. Because sometimes it's like he gets that jump and just kind of runs into the guy. It's like, bro, where was your pass rush move now? Like, you have to still hit him with the pass rush move. And he wouldn't do that all the time. But that's a guy I'm really excited to go watch from this. I interviewed Christian Haynes from UConn, the offensive lineman, who had a really great week. And I asked him who the best pass rusher was he faced in his 3 days, and he mentioned Braden Fisk. So I that's a guy that I would highlight for sure.
Okay. Yeah, no, I mean, do you got anything else, Brandon?
You kind of already answered it, but I was going to ask you just like who your favorite player in general was. But let's just say, gun to your head, you had to pick one guy at the Senior Bowl that you're like, that guy's a Bronco, and it's not Michael Pratt. Who is it?
Ooh.
I guess with it being a draft, you could probably pick multiple guys, if you will. But
okay, that's fair.
Let's go Luke McCaffrey because it would be fun, right? I think Luke McCaffrey in a Broncos jersey would be fun. Can he play special teams too? That's what I'm trying to figure out right now.
It would almost like bring him back to the Valor days, right? Like, can he kick field
quarterback?
Can he kick field goals? Yeah, can he?
Let's bring the quarterback back around.
Yeah,
it's just like you guys saw that video. I don't even know where this came from, but it's that guy is like just literally listing every possible position on a football team that he's like, this is what I play: offensive lineman, defensive lineman, wide receiver.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Here's one more name, guys. I'll say Sion Vaki. If you guys like two-way players, he was getting snaps at safety and running back, and he started for both at Utah.
Okay.
Safety and running back. That's interesting.
Safety and running back.
What'd you say his name was?
Crazy athlete. Sion, Sione, Vaki, Vaki.
Interesting.
Yeah, he played both ways there. That's an interesting name to follow. He came second to Travis Hunter in the Paul Hornung Award for most versatile player. So yeah, that's a guy to watch for sure. He was good on both sides. I think he could get drafted on either side of the football.
That's insane.
So here, and I apologize if you actually answered this already, Joey. But like when you went into the Senior Bowl, like, because we all have those like preconceived, possibly like you look at the roster and you're thinking this tackle, this tackle group, is possibly going to end up being, maybe a decent. I'm just saying, like, just for speculation, if you will, like, because I'm not in your shoes, right? But you're looking at the offensive line. You're like, oh, this has a chance to be maybe the best class of the Senior Bowl. But like, is there something where you looked at possibly the defensive backs room and you were saying, you know what, I'm a little bit low on this particular position group, but then you kind of look at it now and you're nearing the end of it and you've got the game coming up. Is there a position group that was maybe your weakest and now it's one of your strongest, or like right up there with, say, the trenches?
I would say DB. I think that's a good call, Cam. Like, I didn't know what to expect out of this DB group. Like Keon Mitchell being as good as he is. Like, I think that's a guy that came from probably day 2 pick, round 2, and he's going to work his way into the top 15, top 20 picks of this next draft off of this performance. Like those type of things. There's another guy, Jarvis Brownlee from Louisville. He was really, really good in the Senior Bowl. Andrew Phillips from Kentucky. I remember him because of the chrome helmet. He was really, really good in the Senior Bowl. Kyrie Jackson from Oregon. If you're looking for a really long 6'3" fast cornerback with all the traits, that's a guy to sit there and evaluate. I think this DB group has more names than I initially thought. And then when you go and look at like the mock drafts, most of the top guys weren't even included in this. We didn't see Kool-Aid McKinley in this. You know what I mean? Like, we didn't see some of those top cornerbacks, which is makes this group pretty impressive to me.
So offensive line and cornerback. Damn, that's perfect.
So probably, I guess maybe the last question to tie a bow on the whole, Senior Bowl would be, if there is a guy. Well, let me phrase it this way, because obviously there will be players that will be playing in the Senior Bowl, and actually a fair amount of them, if not all of them, will be playing in the Senior Bowl. Is there a player that actually doesn't even need to play in the Senior Bowl, like the Senior Bowl game, right? But is there a player also that will need the Senior Bowl game the most? Because we know that the Senior Bowl game is probably going to be the biggest one. They had the practice. Now it's going to be the game reps, if you will.
Well, Cam, I will say I was talking to a current NFL coach about this. I asked him this exact question. I was like, how much does the game matter to you guys? And he pretty much told me that everyone leaves before the game. He said the practices are what matter. The game, it really is kind of like
interesting.
Nobody really cares. The practices, everyone's there evaluating. The game, not so much. So I'll stick behind what he said with that. Because I asked.
Yeah, take his word, right? I mean, especially someone like that, take his word for it. We had a question. It's not Senior Bowl related, but he asked about Baker Mayfield. Do we feel, and maybe given everything that is, transpired possibly with the Senior Bowl, do we think Baker Mayfield is a viable option?
I don't think he's getting out of
way too much.
Tampa. They ain't letting him go, man.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I'd take him.
Yeah, I mean, it would be cool.
I wanted him out of Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of Senior Bowl, I mean,
I have another take. I'm tired of the small quarterbacks after Russell Wilson. I know that's not a good take, and I know I could be completely wrong. I'm just telling you from a visual aspect of me watching the Broncos. I'm not going to get a good gut feeling if the guy is 5'10". I'm not anymore.
Really? Paxton Lynch was 6'7". You want Paxton Lynch again?
Why can't we go in between for once? Can we get a nice 6 foot?
Drew Lock was 6'3".
Yeah, but he was doing all the rapping. I don't know. I want.
Bro, dude had an interview where he's like, "Yeah, half the time the ball leaves my hand, I'm like, oh no."
Lock, best dancing quarterback I've ever seen.
I still find it funny every once in a while that at games the Broncos, will play put on in the games. Every time that they play that, every once in a while, like at the games, I just chuckle. Because that's exactly what I think of, but
it's on purpose.
Oh, yeah. But I was going to tell you, are you sure it isn't? That's not necessarily a dig at our boy Mario. I mean, he's a small quarterback. We play pickup football with him all the time. I mean, like,
I would love to play pickup football with Baker Mayfield. I would love to do that. That's something I would love to do.
Yeah.
Pickup only though.
Yeah, not Broncos.
Well, and of course,
ultimately, that's kind of a silly take. If Baker Mayfield could become a Broncos quarterback, that would be cool. It's just kind of unrealistic at this point is the real answer.
What's the contract? Like that's just a conversation too. It's like
the Broncos aren't going to have the money to go to do that.
Well, they're not going to have the money, and Tampa Bay is not going to lock him in the building.
So. Absolutely.
Or they're going to, they're going to lock him in the building.
Yeah, he ain't leaving Tampa.
Well, Joey, this was absolutely fantastic, man. And, obviously you're going to be staying there, up until the game.
Are you leaving before the game?
Right. I guess that's the question. Are you leaving before the game? Or are you actually going to be soaking the entire experience?
I'm going to be staying for the game. Tomorrow I have an off day. I'm going to try to write, maybe record another video or two, possibly go eat seafood again, like I have every single day, and try to meet more people.
Not barbecue, ladies and gentlemen, like seafood,
barbecue. Maybe I go the barbecue route this time around, Cam. It's a good call.
Well,
you got to get the 3-side minimum rule though.
Well, see, we apparently found out before the show that Alabama or Mobile, Alabama, was the original creators, right? That's what you said.
I don't want to put that out there. That's what these people are telling me. I don't know if they're
That's what these people.
way to kind of subtly maybe throw them under the bus.
Stop off in New Orleans and just wear a shirt that says Mobile told me they started the Mardi Gras and see what happens.
Yeah, like everywhere I go, that's what they're saying it. They look at me, they're like, "Did you know we started the Mardi Gras?" I'm like, no, I didn't know that. But that's what they're telling me. But they could also be liars, like the French stole the fries. We all I don't know. I could see them trying to steal this right from New Orleans real quick. So I don't know what's going on.
Well, yeah, if you see anything that is like really good Cajun, or
ask Michael Pratt how he feels about that.
Yeah, right. That'd be the key, right? Is getting positive.
How do you feel about Mobile trying to
steal yeah, and what was it like? And if you answer wisely, you won't fall down draft boards.
Absolutely.
Oh,
if he says that it's New Orleans, we're probably going to pick him at 12. Sean Payton might be like, "That's my boy."
Absolutely.
So Joey, as we obviously get a chance to leave you, with Let's Talk Broncos, and you obviously being down there at the Senior Bowl, what can we expect from you guys down there and the content? Especially it's going to be fire, especially with you coming, from the Senior Bowl.
Absolutely, a ton of podcasts. Every Wednesday we go live with Brandon Perna. So if you guys are interested in that type of content, Zach Bree and I are there. Every Thursday I go live with Frankie Films. We've been breaking down, just doing kind of one-off videos, breaking down every day of the Senior Bowl. I'm going to do one more video, Senior Bowl, with him. He got online credentials, so he's been watching all the film, and we kind of just discuss what we saw after I get off of practice. And, yeah, it's been super fun. And obviously Zach Bree and I are there every Monday and Friday. We were doing podcasts all the time. Robbie Davis is a part of the team. Mario is a part of the team. We're adding new people all the time. Shout out to Carter for all the social stuff he does. We're doing a really good job right now. Keep up with Let's Talk Broncos. Follow me at JR Dress. That's all I got, guys.
Not JR Tanks, because there was the whole tank conversation. It's true.
I still am JR Tanks a little bit.
It's just a little bit, especially in the 2023 season.
I didn't see that.
Yeah. Definitely JR Tanks. I like that one. I might start that.
Yeah, create like a separate Matt Canada burner, except for it's Joey or JR Tanks, if you will.
See, people trying to slander me with JR Tanks. That's not going to work. I embrace JR Tanks. I'm not going to get into the tank conversation with you guys. Let's wrap this up. Sorry. I would go down the craziest 30-minute rabbit hole. Tank thing.
We'll save that. We'll save that for the evil Joey Richards
We don't
account.
want to do that. We don't want to do that.
We'll save that for the evil Joey Richards account.
It was fun.
Yeah. Well, Joey, it was
Appreciate
an
it.
absolute blast, man. Make sure you guys follow the work that he does, and Bree and Zach, as he said, and others, of course, Robbie, Frankie, Carter behind the socials. Again, follow what they do over there at the Let's Talk Broncos. Follow Joey at JR Drafts. Make sure you follow him. The show handle, obviously, for Manly Broncos, which is this one, at Manly Broncos. The Twitter handles for both Brandon and I, at Cameron Parker PO, at Brandon Miller PO. It was an absolute blast. The Senior Bowl is on Saturday, so make sure you watch that. And anybody that Joey had a chance to mention, you now have the chance to get a chance to watch those particular players and possibly them become Broncos. So again, thank you guys so much for checking out this special episode with Joey and getting a chance to get a Senior Bowl update. So thank you guys so much, and we'll be back on our regularly scheduled podcast next week on Wednesday at 7:30.
Fast lane when I pass in the street, bag of money in the passenger seat. Tempo's been asking for me on the road from the west to the east. Way up, I might never come down, cause the coast racking up the flame out. So high, I might never come down, so what, this is my lifestyle.